The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. In business, we often get so focused on the what, we lose sight of the why. The why is the key to your success. When you know your why, then your what has more impact. Money is the result of our work, but it's our why that fuels it, that fuels you. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure to join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast, episode number 2. I am your host, Jack, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchin.
What's going on?
What's up? What's going on in the business these days?
Oh, what a good week. As you know, we had another big closing. Some might say great.
All right.
And another big cash out refinance, close another deal. Moving forward, the next phase in Keene, it looks like. We'll talk about that next week. But things are great. What's going on with your business?
Like I said last week, I think, closed on that property locally and got the contractors in there. It was actually a lot sooner than I thought, so things are off and rolling on that front. Really excited. I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks because I did poor planning and it was.
Yeah, there was some logistical nightmares, but we got there. That was the important part. We got there.
Yeah.
You know, we'll take it.
So things are going better than I
stride.
anticipated, I guess, is the moral of this story. So things are good.
All right. Well, today's guest is Jack. So
Best guest ever.
Yeah, I'm not reading that. He put that in the show notes.
I did put that in the show notes because it's a fact.
So we are going to dig into who the best guest we've ever had. He's the first guest, is as he put on here. But before we do that, of course, we want to tell you who this week's episode is brought to you by, and we'll drop it.
Let's roll. Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monty from Boynton's Insurance, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interest at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
All right. Welcome back. As I mentioned, this week's guest is Jack Dalrymple, my co-host, the principal owner and founder of 1124 Properties. Before becoming a full-time real estate professional, Jack worked in the finance space. And today he's going to tell us a little bit about his journey, his why, and how he transitioned. But before we get into that, why don't you tell the people at home where you're at in your business and what you got going on today?
Yeah, so left my full-time job 2 years ago. Originally, I think we'll get into it. My intention was to buy one property a year for 10 years and then leave. That vastly accelerated.
A little quick?
Yeah, I ended up buying 3 properties in the first 3 months. We'll get into that. But so now I'm up to 42 properties, including our investment.
Yep.
And
happened pretty quick?
Very quick. So
let's back it up and jump in right there. That's a great landing spot, because to get into the story to where we're at now, you don't just do traditional real estate. You've got some out-of-state investments. You just mentioned your first 3 months you closed how many deals? You just closed another one, I believe, in Marshfield, correct?
Yep.
Marshfield, Mass.
Yep.
So what does your day-to-day look like right now?
So, I mean, for the past 3 or 4 months, it's been getting everything lined up for this Marshfield deal. So that's investors, contractors, inspections, that entire process. So the day-to-day. And unlike you, it's a smaller team, I guess, is the way to put it. So a lot of the day-to-day falls on me. I try to outsource that as much as possible, so I have teams doing property management. I have an accountant, bookkeeper, things of that nature. But I like to keep it as in-house as much as possible and not have to pay 10.99s.
He's getting in trouble. I said, put your pen down.
Can you hear it?
Get rid of the pen.
Sorry.
Everyone can hear that.
So I mean, we're up to 41 now. Things are rolling. Things have actually been great, better than I ever imagined. I'm sure we'll dig into it, but when I found out I was going full time,
we're definitely going to get into that.
Scared shitless.
Yep.
But still went after it.
Yeah, so. Well, I remember
that's what it takes.
We were in our mastermind, and to share everyone, the story at home. This is pre-COVID. This is 2019, and Jack gets approached with an opportunity. And one of the things we want to hit on with this community, one thing we really want to emphasize, is taking control of your finances and taking personal responsibility, and that is for health, wealth, finance, all components. Because I very much remember the story. We were in the mastermind, and we're talking about transitioning from the W-2 job, and your company was going around. We won't name the company. They were offering a severance of, I think it was 6 months or a year, right?
No, I had a year.
A year.
Yeah.
So because you had already started on this investor journey, because you were already giving yourself these resources and building this foundation, I believe you had 3 single-family investments at the time.
Yep.
You realized, hey, I can take this year, and I can kind of bet on myself, and I can get going, and I can see if I can reposition myself. And we're in the mastermind, and I believe we all said, pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Because what we talk about often is everyone focuses on the downside. They don't look at the potential upside. And we said, you got your degrees, you've got your experience. Worst case, you can go back. You can go back to the corporate job, the W-2. But if it works out, which it has, imagine that. It has worked out. You could really accelerate your growth and start to live life in your terms, which that is what I want to talk about today. Was I know you, and you just gave us a quick overview of where you're at, but you took a big risk. You left a safe 6-figure job, comfy, traditional corporate, office job to bet on yourself, and that's a big risk. So your why must have been pretty powerful. So tell us why. What was your why?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult to say. I haven't told very many people this, but even people I worked with, I worked in finance for 13 years. I don't think 5 of them knew. But I'm a type 1 diabetic, had child onset diabetes. This is difficult.
Take your time.
A harsh reality of my life is the end of my life isn't going to be fruitful, I guess. There's a very high likelihood that I may lose my vision or limbs and stuff like that.
Things you can't control, yeah.
Things I can't control. Yep. I mean, I could be a lot healthier, which would help.
But again, we say all the time, hope isn't a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So really, my grandfather died when he was 67. So working until age 65 to potentially, he didn't have any of this things that I have. I'm not playing poor or a victim here. But a harsh reality is that maybe when I'm at retirement age, it might not be great. So I'm not going to be on the golf course all the time, potentially.
Right. Yep. So this gave you more sense of urgency, I suppose.
So instead of sitting around and waiting for my 401k to do something, given this opportunity, it was kind of like a F it moment. It's now or never. And then getting into real estate before that, it was kind of very much jump-started me on that journey. But then when this opportunity presented itself, it was it's go time. Let's make this happen. It's got to work. Right. So, I mean, the first 8 months, it was a grind. It sucked. Every day looking at deals and doing anything I could, getting out networking. I mean, even the 3 or 4 years up to that when I was learning about real estate, that sucked.
What does that
I didn't watch Netflix. I didn't watch TV. I haven't watched TV. I mean, I do now because I'm I can. I've achieved, I guess, financial freedom somewhat.
Right, well,
so I'm I can dick around and watch a movie or something like that. But for 3 months, I felt, for at least 3 years, I felt like I was letting myself and my family down to not be learning something.
Okay,
or doing something. Granted, I took breaks and stuff like that, but I didn't do it religiously. I didn't watch 4 hours of TV a night.
So you were grinding, you were preparing, and you basically put this plan together. And your motivation, if I'm hearing you correctly, your why was you wanted to get as much time as you had, not knowing what could come down the pipe, not knowing. Again, we don't know, but to your plan, you're preparing. So you're putting yourself in this position to motivate and take these risks. And we talked about the business, but I think this is important to make this real. Because one thing we want to do with Tell Us Why, with this community, one thing we will do is we want to give actionable steps and actionable advice. Because the whole point of a why, as we said last week, it's not just money. Money will come. You just heard Jack, sacrifice short-term, 3 years, he scaled his portfolio. What does the day-to-day look like on the entrepreneurial side? What are you spending your time doing with your friends, your family now? What does that shift look like? Because as we talked about, this is essentially your retirement. You are financially free right now. What does that look like? Did you obtain some of those goals because you didn't want to wait to be 67?
Yeah.
Why don't you get into that?
I mean, there's days where I'm like, oh, everything's great. Like, I don't have to do anything today, which is true. Like, I don't have to do anything pretty much ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get people to take care of things for me. But on that note, like, I'm working 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, I like to pretend like it's all great. Like, oh, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. But legit, I work 24/7.
So it's not all roses?
When I was out in Florida, like, I was on phone calls, like, doing stuff for the podcast. I was doing stuff for the business, like, everything. Like, it doesn't stop. And it's kind of like, actually, when I first bought the property that gave me the financial freedom, I got a call at 2:30 in the morning because there was a water issue. And it was a significant issue. And I was doing property management at the time.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, that's awful. Has to be horrible. And I'm like, it took me 20 minutes at 2:30 in the morning to resolve the issue.
Yep.
Instead of going to work for 40 hours a week.
It's so funny.
Like,
They won't equate. They won't leverage their time. They won't leverage their time.
Like, granted, this sucks right now, but it's a short-term suck over a long-term 40 years of working in corporate finance.
Well,
so.
And that's like one of the things as we're getting into this, when you're telling these stories. We had a lot of people reach out, and I kind of want to move around a little bit right here real quick to a new segment we're going to do, because you just hit on it. The listener question. We asked everybody on Instagram, the Facebook group, LinkedIn, anywhere and everywhere we can be found. Submit your questions. And one thing we're going to do every week is take a listener question from the community, read that question and discuss it. And we're actually going to give away some swag from the swag shop for that listener. We got a lot of great questions.
Watching on YouTube right here, Aspiring 1%er.
It was very hard. It was very hard. I think we'd all agree to choose the winning question, but the one that resonated, because I knew your story, is I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to throw it to you, and then I'll chime in. But the question, and I hope I don't butcher it, the question comes from Alex Crocker. It says, when is the right time to transition to a full-time investor?
Wow. When you have the opportunity to get laid off.
No. Jack had a unique situation.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's highly personal. Like, I think like the going rate on whatever Twitter finance is like 2 times your W-2 employment or something like that. So if you're making $40,000, you got to make $80,000 or something like that.
Yeah, I totally disagree with that.
I 1,000% disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's highly personal. I think when you can, like, if you have passive income, like, keep building up those assets until you're like, okay.
Yeah, and to jump in there to Jack's point, I think that's exactly how I'd say is when you can. And I decided to kind of tease the story last week. The definition of financial freedom, if you want to be technical, is when your passive income or your investment income, we call it passive, exceeds your cost of living. Because I think what gets lost on a lot of people is, and that's why I went with this question right away, and you're seeing more people wake up to this, it's not like you're going to sit on a beach and not do anything. Once your passive income exceeds your day-to-day living, you're going to continue to usually invest and earn money. It's more about, it doesn't mean you're not going to work never again, or start a business, or partner on a deal, or invest. What it means is you're going to be available to take advantage of opportunities to launch a podcast, to partner on real estate deals, to start businesses that you're passionate about, to have other investment opportunities. So what I would say to anybody, to Alex and to anybody listening, I'll just give you our example of what we did. When we knew we could essentially exceed our cost of living, take an amount for savings and other investing that we determined necessary, and a little bit of spending money for fun. I can tell you, though, we technically we got, again, real estate gets some favorable tax benefits, but essentially we took a pay cut, if you want to be technical. Me and my wife were both, in 6-figure jobs when we transitioned out. We didn't earn that the first year from the rental business. I can tell you that now. A lot of times you will find in real estate especially, you can be equity rich and cash poor, meaning, think about it. Every dollar you take as an owner is a dollar you're not investing to scale the group, or conversely, if you're partnering, you're giving up equity long term So you don't always, you want to be careful of how much you're giving away in deals too. So you don't want to take every single dime that's available to you. Would you agree with that? Or you kind of want to stick to the budget, and the personal finance piece is key?
Yeah, I mean, I think budgeting personal finance is like the key component for the first step to transitioning to a full-time investor. But one thing that was explained to me during that departing from my corporate job, and this woman spoke very bluntly. She was like, "You already have a job. Like, real estate is your job. Make it work." And I mean, you guys, Mastermind was exactly what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it. Yeah. And she was like, "Guess what? If it sucks and you crash and burn, these crappy jobs that you don't want to do anyway are still going to be here, and you can just go find one."
Your worst case scenario is most people's.
My worst case scenario is going back to exactly what I was doing before.
Yes, yes. And
maybe less pay.
Yeah,
but
we said it earlier. We can't hammer that point enough. It stuck with me so much. We, for some reason, tend to focus on what can go wrong, right? We never talk about what happens if things go right. And what I have found, it's easy. The economy's been riding, a bull market, et cetera, et cetera. But once you start investing in yourself, back to what we said earlier, reading books, podcasts, networking, learning about financial independence, you don't lose your skills and your ability. And being financially free, back to the listener's question, you're now going to be available. When you're not putting in the traditional 40, 50 hours between commuting and the office job, doing something that's not really rewarding, making someone else rich, you're available to take advantage to you opportunities as they come to you. And that's really a part of it that doesn't get talked about enough is don't just look at the downside. Make an educated decision, put yourself in a favorable position, but also focus on what can happen when it goes right. Because if you're really determined, if you take away the safety net and you get after it and you start taking action, you start investing in yourself, it tends to pay off. It's pretty hard to really put yourself in a favorable position and not succeed is what I found. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was in finance during the 2008 crisis. Like when
so you saw the worst.
Like
of it.
My company got destroyed.
Yep.
Like my division got destroyed, and I was happy to have a job at the end of that. So during that time, I was like, "Oh, this is great. Like this is nice and safe. Like I'll just ride this out." And I was really happy to have that safety net. And then as time went on, I kind of started getting irked a little bit. I was like, well, maybe if I go to a smaller, medium-sized, it's a huge Fortune 500 company. Maybe if I go to a medium-sized company. And then I was like, well, maybe if I go to a small company. And then it's like, oh, so maybe I'll go to a startup and maybe have some equity chance or something like that. And then finally it was like, all right, I'm going to start my own business. I don't know what actually started pushing me, but I remember being very, very, very comfortable and happy for the opportunity to work in a Fortune 500 company that was like,
well, it's told to you since you're how young.
I can't explain that transition, but something happened. I guess, it was just kind of like 13 years of my life has slipped by and I'm doing a job that I hate. Actually, I didn't hate it. I was just boring. It was a waste of my life.
Yeah, I think
it was just a waste of my life.
What was the story you told me when Jack were in the mastermind and Jack got his job, his 6-figure-a-year job, which is a good living, down to the point where you were essentially working 20 minutes or so on a Monday.
That's that. I was like 20 minutes
that
a
was
week.
Because he found a way to put it on autopilot. And
hold on. Let me tell everybody, I am lazy. I am very lazy. And I think that is one of the most powerful things in my life.
Because it
no
makes
joke.
Your problems off.
Because I do things right the first time. And I don't want to waste my time doing something else. So when I found out that I could automate my job, I learned how to do write code. I'm not good at it. It was VBA and Access and Excel.
So tell the people at home you are lazy.
I am lazy. I will admit that freely.
We could recoin that as efficient.
Hold on. I got a quote here from Bill Gates. What was it? I'll choose a lazy person to do a hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it.
Yes.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
Yes. I like to think of myself in the same vein, and I found, believe it or not, that a lot of successful people, it's not lazy in the way you might think of, you're couch surfing, you're doing nothing there. It's lazy in the way you approach problems. You want to break problem solving down to where basically it gets taken off your plate. You want very little time. I do it all the time. I love finding deals. I love raising money. I love acquiring the asset of solving the problem. But after that, I want to get on to the next thing. I'm already on to the next thing. So you need to surround yourself with a team, to get to it. Because circling back to your why, you're a big family guy. You mentioned about your retirement earlier. I know right now important things in your life that you're living because of these assets. You're bringing your son to hockey. going to the beach. Most days I'm talking to you, you're on the beach over there in Hull. I don't know the name of the beach, but you know, and that's kind of key, which brings up to another segment we're going to be asking every guest going forward. So Jack will be the first one. There is no right or wrong answer. In your opinion, as a man who's now been an entrepreneur, also worked a corporate job, is college education worth it? The way it's currently constructed, is it worth it?
There has only been one reason that, like in the practice episodes, that I would say going to college is actually worth it. Unless you're doing like an engineer or structural engineer or something like that. Like obviously you need to have certain skills. Yeah, that's worth it.
Don't caveat it. Just get to it. Come on,
no,
pull it up.
Is
Let's
not
get
worth
to it.
Yeah. Absolutely not. Like when Tommy Freeze Pops reads the intro, he was saying that it was for the networking. Like he did it for the networking, and I was like, that makes sense. I went to school in Tampa. I haven't talked to anyone since the day I graduated.
Yeah, that has benefited your investing career in math.
Not at all. Like not at all.
Yep.
Like granted, did I pick up on some things? Sure. Did it help me in business? No. My first job I got, there was a high school educated kid there. I'm suppose I could have gotten the same job just going to high school. And from there, I got my foot in the door. Yeah. And that's it. Nobody asked about my college education after that. So, no.
So you think college? Okay, that's interesting. And, you know, I'll probably, every week, I'll chime in on this, but it's the first time talking about it. I think it needs an overhaul. So I think, again, looking through the lens of the way it is now, my wife's probably going to kill me because she was in higher ed. There's a big issue with it in this country. And I think entrepreneurs and I think people are starting to wake up. You know, my experience, I was the first in my family to go to college. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, we took out loans and aid that I didn't need. I went to schools that didn't make sense. It didn't benefit me at all. Luckily, same skills I have now. I was able to talk. I was able to network my way through it. Pretty much, I can't sit here and give any discernible piece of evidence that has benefited me today. What I will say though is that everyone has to go case by case, and we're going to have a lot of interesting discussions because one thing we're hoping to accomplish with this show is bring on people in education and talk about my former field. What are we doing around financial literacy? What are we doing for entrepreneurs? What are we teaching? Why are we still pushing? As someone in that field, I can tell you, and we had a guest on previously on a practice episode, and she'll be back on. She's now interacting with 30 different states in the country, 30. I said, out of these 30 states you're interacting with, how many of them are pushing college education still? She said, every single one, it's still 100% college acceptance. I said, okay, how many of them are pushing financial literacy and entrepreneurship? She said 0. Yep. So you've got someone who gets to see on a macro level more than half the country. And we're all now acknowledging that the cost of college is a problem, yet we're still forcing it on everyone.
Yep.
We acknowledge that starting your own business and finding ways to invest is important. We're not teaching that anywhere.
Yep.
And circling back to what you said earlier about your job being safe, that's such a generational thing for me. And, the people you surround yourself with in your circle has such an impact because they're just doing what they think. And a lot of people's risk tolerance, they're safer. Yep. And if you want to do the safe thing, the advice they're giving you is the safe thing. And, I'll say it, and some people might be offended, but I always preach it. Be very careful who you take advice from. If someone is not where you want to be today, acknowledge it, have the conversation, and then probably disregard 95% of it because it's not actionable to your situation.
Absolutely.
And it's like we talked about negative people last week. There are more dream crushers than there are dream chasers. And that's just the sad reality of it. So you need to find a way to surround yourself, take that responsibility, start going to the network meetups, start reading the books, start listening to the podcast. These are all free things. You don't need college for these things. Yep. YouTube is educating more millionaires today than Harvard probably ever has. Yep. It's happening. Yep. But you still have to take action and bet on yourself.
I mean, on that note, Good Will Hunting. I love that quote.
I was just about to do it for you.
You can go.
No, I wasn't going to. I was just going to say.
That's producer Chrissy for those who cannot see her right
everybody.
now.
Hi, everybody. I was going to say, from what I know of Jack, I think his favorite quote would be from Good Will Hunting, where he's in the bar with that guy, and he said, so basically you wasted $150,000 on an education you could have got for $1.50 in late fee charges at the public library.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it pretty much sums it up.
I mean, I don't know when that movie came out, but I think I was in college when I watched it one day in college and I was like, shit.
You just nailed it.
Shit.
You just nailed it. So,
And like, I don't know. I mean, from that point, like, I think that like self-education, like that kind of was like just a punch in the gut that hit me at the right moment. As again, another perfect timing thing.
Yep.
But like self-education for me from that point forth was primary. Like I can teach myself to do almost anything. Like if I wanted to be an engineer, I could do it because it just give me a couple of years probably in a book, and I'll figure it out. And with the internet, YouTube, I can figure out anything.
The key part is you taking the action. So, with that said, you're going to be the first guy. You ready? This is the segment we're going to do every week. The beginning and the end.
We're going to make some cool intro
Yes,
music
we
for
are.
this.
The beginning and the end. So, usually me and Jack will be ping-ponging, but because he's the guest, I'm doing it. So, the first half of that equation, what is one piece of actionable advice you give to your 18-year-old self?
I mean, I think it would just have to be go take a risk. Like, you're 18 years old. You have literally nothing to lose. Like, take a risk. Take a big risk. Like, failing isn't bad, especially when you're 18
hurry up and fail,
18 to 40.
Yep.
Like, you can fail, and you can fail hard and still get back on your feet by the time you want to retire.
I don't know about you guys, but I learned more in life by my failures than I did by my successes.
Absolutely.
Fail big, fail hard, fail often. Like,
I like it.
I was so safe, and that kills me to this day because I just went the safe route. Everything that I did, going to college,
because that's what we get told to do.
You're exactly right.
It kills me. The compounding, the compounding returns, both negative and positively. Of if you take action at 18, the things you'll learn and how much quicker you'll accelerate to where you're going to end up versus waiting till you're 30, 35, 40. People don't realize that. Again, focusing on that again. But the second half of that equation, what is one thing you would want your 90-year-old self to say to you?
My 90-year-old self, I mean, I would want to say to myself that, like, I made a difference. Like, I want my son to love his father. I want my wife to be happy. Gosh, shit.
That's all right. Take your time. Take your time.
Hey.
And, like, I want to make a difference in people's lives. Like, I didn't think that I did, but, like, on Facebook the other day, I follow some of my tenants, and I've worked with this individual like quite a bit, and she posted just like the nicest thing I've ever heard anyone say. She doesn't know that I follow her, and she posted it anyway. And I was like, it's business. It's not supposed to be personal, but like that was just
a
so
cool
great.
moment. Yeah.
Like I want to do that often. Like I'm not gonna put my family or myself at risk, but like if I can do the right thing at the right time, I want to do that every chance that I get.
So you want your 90-year-old self. So that is the beginning and the end segment, and we look back, we look forward. Something we'll be doing. And with that, Jack, where can people get a hold of you? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, I mean, all the Tell Us Why social media, I can be reached through that. If you're interested in investing or real estate, 1124 Prop on basically every social media, so Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, we have added. There are links to all of the 1124 Prop in our description below, and there's a lot of them. Along with all the Tell Us Why. We're on YouTube, Facebook. We got a Facebook group. At the moment, you can listen to us on Podbean, and very soon on all the platforms where you listen to your favorite podcasts. We are Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Again, all the links are in the description below for you guys.
Show notes.
Also,
should be writing these down right now.
We don't need to. You just click on them.
All right.
Now, if you also want to get your hands on some of the cool swag, like what Jack's
sweater.
wearing,
Show the sweater.
Swag, aspiring 1%.
and then I believe, if I got that right, our lucky question.
Yes.
Alex Crocker.
Yes.
Yes, he's going to be getting some stuff.
He's
We'll be
getting
reaching
some
out.
as well. So there's also a link to the Tell Us Why swag shop down in the description below as well.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
So until then, what do we got going on next week, you guys?
Well, next week we have our second best guest.
Second best. Okay. Noted.
Fact. No. We interview Mike, obviously. Mike Ketchin, his story, find out where he's at, and he tells us his why.
We will. Looking forward to it. And until then, as always, bet on yourself.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.